and rollers and the crazy two that stuck together and hung, and you and him. Mm-hmm. You think that's a misconception, or was it really like that?
No, it was really like that. We Ace and I loved to party. That's no secret. We were both street guys. We both grew up with the attitude that rock and roll was an attitude. Had nothing to do with science. It had nothing to do with sitting in the office with a shirt and tie and figuring out what beat goes where. We looked at it as it was a party from one. It was a party. Rock and roll was to let it all go, hang out, have a great time, beat your brains out. And so we gravitated. But, you know, talking about what really was hard, being treated like a second-hand citizen on that reunion was heart-rendering for me. I felt like I was a founding member of, let's say, General Motors. We started General Motors together. Now I was being treated like a worker. You know, if you do it wrong, we'll fire you. If you don't do this right, there's the door. They had the power now, and being the Machiavellians they are, they used it hard against.
Was it like that, Peter? Was it like that from day one, from '96, Intrepid, when the first press conference, the first thing that happened? Was it like that from the beginning, or did it start out all for one for all, and then get more and more progressively worse? I mean, because in the beginning, I would imagine they saw the money on the table, and they got to make this work for everybody, because you were Ace Bolt, and that some of that goes away. But then once they made some of that money, did it get worse?
Yes, but it was worse from the beginning, too, but it did get worse. I remember the first few rehearsals, Ace was late, as usual, and I got a fax one day from Gene. I still have it. It's just worn out. I was actually going to put it in the book. That if this shit sort of keeps on going, and this keeps going, and this keeps going, I'm going to pull a plug, and that's the end of this. Like I should have went, yeah, right. But I believed it, because I was really in a place that I really wanted this again, and I didn't want to screw it up, because I knew I didn't want to retire as some old guy living in some apartment somewhere. I paid my dues much more than they did, I felt, in life, and I really wanted to sort of be a good boy again and really work this out, and it was already, I could see their wheels turning, and yeah, it got worse. The more power, the more money, the bigger arenas, the bigger stuff. It got more and more. I felt I was really treated, and my wife, who's now my wife, Gigi, but at the time my girlfriend, they would treat her like trash. They would look at her like she was some kind of somebody up to, you know, really, and it hurt me a lot. And I would, 25 years ago, I would have gave them a black eye, but I swallowed my pride and took it all the time, and took whatever they told me to do. One of the biggest hurts was Ace was the betrayal with Ace and me. I would die for that guy. I'd take a bullet for that guy. And when I was told to go up his room one night, he was ossified, and he told me he was making so much more money than I was making on this whole to get together. I thought I was going to take a heart attack.
Let me ask you about that, because that's one of the things I
really
wanted.
Did.
That's one of the things I wanted to ask you about in the book, because I found that really interesting. Because a lot of people, like I said, align you and Ace as this unit in a way, rightly or wrongly, that you guys are you have this interlocking bond. Mm-hmm. When I read that in the book, I looked at that, and I want to see how this worked, because in the beginning of that process for the reunion, you actually give him credit for saying that they right in front of everybody wanted to give you the least amount of money.
Absolutely.
And then you were walking away from it.
Absolutely.
For people who haven't read the book. Mm-hmm. And then Ace says, hold on, pulls you into a room, the two of you and your mutual manager, and says, we're going to cut his commission, that's going to go to you, and we're going to make the same money and go out in '96, and that's it. So in a way, at that point, Ace kind of saved the day, because you were ready to bail, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, so you make that arrangement for that tour. But why did you think that arrangement would be, because you would have to renew a contract for every subsequent tour, right? Mm-hmm. So you just assumed that would be the same deal going forward.
Yes.
And you felt the betrayal because it wasn't?
Well,
because let me just explain. There's something, as I'm sure you know, called favored nations. Have you heard that? Most favored nations?
Sure. Oh,
Something you haven't gotten a lot.
Yeah, I've heard that. I've heard that.
So my question to you is, like, you know, if you had counsel with you or whatever, and that first deal expired, and then they came to you and said, well, this deal isn't most favored nations, wouldn't that set an alarm off for you right then and there to say, whoa, something's fishy here?
Yeah, but we had the same lawyer. Talk about stupid. We had the same manager. Again, I trusted these two guys. I really did. I trusted Ace because you're right. He did pull back me and say we got to do this together. But again, as the train got faster and the money got bigger and the power got bigger, Ace got crazier, and Ace's choice of women was crazier, and he got crazier. And that's why, in a way, I realize now, even though that happened, that, yeah, he did come out at least and tell me. He wound up telling me.
Yeah, that's interesting for him to just. He just decided one day. Did you ask him, or he just offered that?
No,
to you?
he called my room.
So it was weighing on him, obviously.
Yeah, he called my room. His bodyguard, whoever, called my room and brought me up there. And he said, I just can't live with myself no more. I can't take this no more. I watch you every night smiling at me, hug me. You're always there for me. And I've been really making a lot more money, Catman, than you.
Wow, it must have really been on his. He felt he had he had to let it out. He was carrying it with him, it seemed like.
I don't know. We had 9 shows left in the tour. So for a long time, I don't think it was bothering him. But I guess he was carrying it. And between you and me now, knowing what addiction is, through my own addiction and my wife sobriety, that I really don't blame him in a respect, because it was the drugs that made him mad and crazy, and I know that to be true because I was mad and crazy in my life. So I could almost forgive him, but I can't forgive the other two. They were right in their straight heads. They knew exactly the cunningness. They knew exactly where they were going. They couldn't have picked a better guy than Doc McGee to handle the band. I mean, talk about a gifted horse in the mouth. He gets the band when we're getting ready to do a reunion. It's like, to me, you were getting the Yankees who already won the World Series for the next 2 years. That's not much dues to pay, like
right.
Bill Coyne did, rest his glorious soul. And I gave Bill and Sean and those guys credit where they didn't get in the other two books, that they deserved all 1,000,000%. And so, this would go on constantly day after day. And, when I found out that he was making so much more, I wouldn't do the last 9 shows. I was ready to pack it up. And they got real scared, and then they gave me what he was getting supposedly for that. And I could have swore it. I was almost took a stroke walking back to my room.
It's unfortunate because a lot of people don't realize, and I don't blame fans for not knowing the nature of the music industry. I've worked in it 30 years. You've been in it longer. Most of them are naive, and that's fine because it's not their job. Their job is to be fans, but they don't get it. One of the most interesting things, reading your book, you get a big crash course on what's right and wrong and how to do business. But one of the most amazing things, like what's happened just recently, I don't know if you've heard this story or followed it, but Bill Ward and Black Sabbath got back together. And everyone would think, okay, those guys are 70 years old, whatever, and it's one last hurrah, and they're going to do one last tour and album and say goodbye. Somehow the 4 guys are still alive. They're going to go do it. Well, Bill does the press conference, and they offered him like 5% of what, and what Bill did is Bill put it out there totally. I don't know if you know Bill Ward at all, but I
met Bill a few times.
He's a very nice man, and he's very, like you, he wears his emotions on his sleeve.
Most drummers do.
And he just came out and he said, this is an unsignable contract. He said publicly to the fans, here's what they offered me, and this is why I'm not doing it. No musical differences, no this, no that. Right. I'm not doing this for 5% when they're making 40, and unless it's a signable contract, I'm not doing it. That was a big, I was surprised, though, Peter, how many rock fans came up to me and like, you mean every band is just not, if it's 4 guys, quarter. I'm like, no. Now, in the beginning, it is a lot of times.
It used to be, yeah.
But as soon as someone leaves and comes back and vice versa, that's when the power shift happens.
Yes, exactly.
And you got caught in that cycle with the case of the reunion because coming back into it, you essentially were an employee being signed to a contract to be, you and Ace, to be a part of it.
Yeah, but I didn't think I'd be treated like one.
Right. There's a difference for sure.
There's a big difference there. I have pride. I have integrity. I have honor. I won't be slapped around. I won't be treated that way. And I took enough of it. Because I I was driven also for money. I wanted, and I knew, when I married Gigi, I'm 20 years older than her. My day is going to come where I'm going to be just damn too old to run around and be carrying on. I wanted, which I should have thought way back even when we started, a pension, money in the bank when I'm old, money if, God forbid, I got sick. I had cancer. I'm 5 years clear now. I just got picked ambassador for men's cancer.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And so I have a different road now I travel and go down to try to maybe do something a hell of a lot more than, and there's nothing wrong with making gold records, but this is so much more fulfilling for me is to be with the breast cancer thing. But
what I love, and we got to go to a break, but what I love, here's what makes your book work so well, is it is incredibly honest from your perspective as to what happened. And I respect the hell out of that, because if you're going to write a book like this, you've got to tell it like you saw it and lived it. It's the only way to do it.
The only way. I can't make that up.
But here's the other thing about it, Peter, is that for anybody that thinks this book was written from some sort of standpoint of an agenda or going after one person or another or something, I've said this about 20 times since I read your book, there is nobody that you lay out harder in your book than you.
Thank you.
I mean, if you would have written this book and said what you said about everything and everybody, but painted yourself in roses, but I mean, everything I've ever heard about you and the accusations leveled against you, you address and admit to what's right and wrong in this book.
Absolutely.